and welcome. My name is Aichanbot. I'm a dedicated Yu-Gi-Oh! Dueling streamer. As you can see here, we have been quite a time inactive and not making any videos, but one of my favorite decks of all time, Blue Eyes White Dragon, is going to come back to the meta, and that's why we are going to make this special episode of deck explanation videos for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links as the Maiden with Blue Eyes. So let's go straight into the deck. As you can see here, the core card of the deck is of course the Maiden with Blue Eyes. What Maiden Blue Eyes does is, when this card is targeted for an attack or by a card effect or trap effect whatsoever, you can negate the attack, and if you do change the battle position of this card, then you can special summon one Blue Eyes White Dragon from your hand, deck, or graveyard. This is super busted, you know, hand, deck, or graveyard. So no matter what happens to the Maiden with Blue Eyes, someone attacks into it, you summon Blue Eyes. They target it with a card effect or a trap, you summon Blue Eyes. So no matter what happens, you summon Blue Eyes. Perfect card for Blue Eyes deck. I love it. So the other card you already know from the last Blue Eyes White Dragon deck from 2019, which is the White Stone of Ancients. This stone is so old and so white. We're gonna stop this. You know what happens if you drop this card into your graveyard. At the end of the turn, you will summon Blue Eyes. So basically, Maiden summons Blue Eyes under any conditions. Stone of the Ancient summons Blue Eyes when it's dropped into the graveyard. And then you get the next card, which will help you summon again Blue Eyes, which is the Sage with Blue Eyes. When this card is normal summoned, you can add one level Light Tuner from your deck to your hand, except Sage with Eyes of Blue. You can discard this card, then target one effect monster you control and send it to graveyard. If you do, special summon one Blue Eyes monster from your deck. Which means, if you put a Maiden on the field, uses a Sage to target it, to tribute it for the graveyard, you can summon one Blue Eyes by the effect of the Maiden and one Blue Eyes by the effect of the Sage. So you have instantly two Blue Eyes, bam, on the board. It's so broken. And if you don't have a Maiden, you can still use the White Stone of Ancients. You put the White Stone of Ancients also as effect monster into the graveyard with the active effect of the Sage from your hand. You don't have to summon it. You use the effect from your hand, put the stone into the graveyard and summon Blue Eyes. And bam, at the end of the next turn, a second Blue Eyes will be on your board. So again, two Blue Eyes. This card is just also totally broken together with Maiden and the Stone of the Ancients. And you should not forget, if you summon this card normally to the field, you get to pull one other card from your deck, which is a Light Tuner monster. So which means if you summon a Sage, you can pull a Maiden with Blue Eyes or Stone of the Ancients from your deck. One book combo coming in, okay? Then you have, of course, your Blue Eyes in your deck. Without Blue Eyes, you cannot summon it. And you have one copy of the Dragon Spirit of White, which is mainly there to get rid of the back row of your opponent. The Spirit of White, when it's summoned from your graveyard or normal summoned or from deck whatsoever, it will target the back row of your opponent, and if it does not destroy the back row, it will banish it, which is even better. But it's a targeted banish, so don't forget about that. And there's another effect from the Dragon Spirit of White. When the Dragon Spirit of White is already on the board and your enemy has a monster on their side and you have a Blue Eyes in your hand, you can always trade the Dragon Spirit of White for a Blue Eyes directly from your hand during each player's turn, which is super strong too. Sadly, I have only one Mausoleum of White. I have seen people who play like 3 copies of it, some play 2, I only have 1, but it works still fine. It's a field spell, you put it on the field, and this is super busted together with the Maiden, because every time you use the Mausoleum of White to target the Maiden's effect will be activated and you summon a Blue Eyes to the field, while the Maiden gets an attack buff by the card which you put into graveyard. And since you only have like either level 1 tuners with 0 attack or Blue Eyes, you will usually get 800 attack out of that, because here it says monster gains attack and def equal to the level of the monster sent to the graveyard multiplied by 100, so level 8 is 800, that's why. You can banish this card from your graveyard and add 1 Burst Stream Destruction from your deck to your hand. If you play with Burst Stream of Destruction, you can do that, but I don't. Basically, this card with Maiden is busted, Maiden with Sage is busted, Sage with Stone of Ancients is busted. Altogether, it's busted. And then I play 1 copy of Silver's Cry. I see people who don't play any copies of it. It's fair, I'm still used to it. Sometimes this can just give you an advantage and a non-expected effect. And it gives you also a second spell card, which works very fine with Ultimate Providence, which is a rare card and not an ultra rare like all the other cards in your hands. And makes this deck also pretty consistent, because you know what Ultimate Providence does. It's a counter trap card, so if your enemy activates a monster's effect, a trap, or a spell, you can drop either a trap, spell, or a monster from your hand to the graveyard to negate that effect. So you choose. While Divine Wrath is an ultra rare card, but it only targets effect monsters. So if an effect monster is activated, it doesn't matter if in graveyard or on the field or on the hand, you can negate it by dropping any card into the graveyard. And then that monster will be destroyed, the effect will be negated, and the card will be put into the graveyard. So all this works really well together. And the extra spice in this deck is of course the Deep Ice White Dragon. Usually I haven't seen many people who play with this card, but I really liked it. It's a lot of fun, and it gives a burn effect, which people usually do not expect you to have in your Blue Eyes deck, because Blue Eyes do not burn, but this one does burn. So when a face-up Blue Eyes monster you control is destroyed by battle or opponent's card effect, which means you have already a Blue Eyes on field, somehow it still gets destroyed by your enemy, can happen. Then you can special summon this card from your hand. It will copy the attack of one of the Blue Eyes from your graveyard, so it will be 3000 attack or 2500. It will be still busted. And do not forget, inflict 600 damage to your opponent for each dragon type monster with different names in your graveyard, which means Blue Eyes, Spirit, multiplied by 600. You know what's coming up. And if you put already some other dragon cards like from your extra deck into the graveyard, this can really hurt. You can burn your enemy with that to death. Yep. And if this card gets destroyed, don't forget it. If this card ignores my target 1 monster in your graveyard, yeah, that's what's the effect I explained before with the attack combination. Oh. So now we have explained all the cards from the main deck, and we will go into the extra deck. So the extra deck is very viable. I've seen every combination with Blue Eye, Spirit Dragon, Merc Dragon is a favorite, and Azure Silver Dragon. So those 3 are, I would say, the core cards. I put in a Star Eater because I have a level 10 dragon which I could summon to the board. Combined with one level 1 tuner, this would make 11, which means I could theoretically summon a Star Eater. It's very unlikely, but you still can do it. That's why we have this card in the extra deck, just for the spare. Same goes for Giant Castle. Sometimes it's better to have a Giant Castle on the field which has attack above 300 because it gets boosted by the tuner monster you are using. So it comes usually out with 3200 attack and can just get over another Blue Eyes or something. But the core 3 cards are the Blue Eye Spirit Dragon, the Vermilion Dragon Merc, which you already know from the deck from 2019, and also the Azure Eye Silver Dragon. So I think Vermilion Dragon Merc you already know. You Synchro summon this card to the field. It can use tribute, or it can banish 1 level 1 tuner from your graveyard and actively destroy 1 card on the field on the opponent's side, which means it could be a monster or back row, depends on what you're going for or what you decided to be. You can even target a field spell if you want to. The Azure Eye Silver Dragon is also pretty busted if you just want to stall out your opponent. You put this big booty monster into defense position, and then you just wait until it summons every turn a normal monster from your graveyard. Look, once per turn during a standby phase, you can target 1 normal monster in your graveyard, special summon that target, which would be a Blue Eyes. And not enough, new card, Blue Eye Spirit Dragon. This card is pretty complex to play with. I still have to find my own way with it because the timing is not so easy and you can chain it to the wrong effects, especially if you have other light monsters in your extra deck. So what the Blue Eye Spirit Dragon does is when you synchro summon this card to the field, once per turn during either player's turn, when a card effect when the effect of a card in the graveyard is activated, you can negate that activation. So this depends on the timing. You can chain it to the graveyard of your opponent. But also the second effect, during either player's turn, you can tribute this synchro summon card, special summon one light dragon type synchro monster from your extra deck in defense position, which would be the Azure Eyes, except Blue Eye Spirit Dragon, but destroy it during the end phase of this turn. But if you remember another effect of the Azure Eyes cannot be destroyed, which is also in the effect of the Azure. So you synchro summon Blue Eye Spirit Dragon, you can tribute it for Azure Eyes Silver Dragon, and it cannot be destroyed after that. It should be written here. Here. Dragon Pies. So one blah blah, normal monster. If this card is special summoned, dragon type monsters you currently control cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects until the end of the next turn. Basically, those two cards going together, busted. And last but not least, which makes this deck so incredibly strong, and why I'm going back to play Duel Links and Blue Eyes White Dragon decks, is the skill of Kaiba, which is called Alternative Evolution. I will explain why this one is so super duper busted. So select one monster you control with 300 or more attack whose original name is Blue Eyes White Dragon. You have 3 copies of them. Then select a monster. The selected monster becomes Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon. This skill can only be used once per duel. You would think that the skill is balanced, but actually it's right now in the meta it's not balanced, because you summon a Blue Eyes to the field, you activate your skill, turn it into a Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon, and the Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon can each turn activate its own effect to destroy a monster which your opponent controls. Doesn't matter face up, face down, just destroys it. This card cannot attack during the turn which this effect is activated. It's fine, but what most people don't know, even if the Blue Eyes Alternate White Dragon gets destroyed and put into the graveyard, you can get that card back on hand, which makes it super busted. You can banish your Stone of the Ancients from your graveyard and get back the Alternate Dragon on your hand, or you can recycle it with any other effects you can imagine. You can put the Master, for example, inside it and recycle with the Master too. I don't have the Master here right now in the deck, but I can show you this guy. There is another Blue Eyes card which can recycle him, so this is optional, but you can do it. When this card is normal summoned, you can target one level light tuner monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can shuffle this card from your graveyard into the deck and target one effect monster you control, send it to the graveyard, and if you do, special summon one Blue Eyes monster from your graveyard other than said monster. You can only use this effect Master of Blue Eyes once per turn, so a lot of possibilities to recycle the Alternative Dragon, and then when you have this card in your hand, it can be special summoned by merely showing another Blue Eyes from your hand. So cannot be normal summoned or set, must first be special summoned from your hand by revealing Blue Eyes White Dragon in your hand. You can only special summon Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon once per turn this way. So since you only have one copy of that card, doesn't matter. This card's name becomes Blue Eyes White Dragon while it's on the field, blah blah, and then the turn destruction we explained before. So you go Alternative Evolution, you go Alternative Dragon, you go Alternative Blue Eyes, and then it's get destroyed, put into the graveyard, you recycle it, get back on hand, put it again on the board. Doesn't matter. So I hope that was a very fast, very brief explanation about this deck. You can check out the gameplay which is going to come up. I'm really hyped that this deck is back, and I think it will be even more powerful after ban list. So which means when Dark Lord, Shiranui and other meta decks which right now are gone, this one, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to use that one to get my King of Games Mundo 28, and I'm just happy to be back. So signing out, iChambot as your maiden with blue eyes.